What's good, YouTube? It's your boy, Blue Blood Sports TV, back at y'all with another one. So, former multi-division world champion, superstar boxer turned colorful analyst for ESPN and Top Rank, that being none other than Timothy Desert Storm Bradley. He has an interesting take when it comes to undefeated, three-division world champion, former junior welterweight undisputed world champion, who currently is the WBO welterweight world champion, who is widely considered by many to be the #1 best pound-for-pound fighter in the world, and Terence Crawford, superstar boxer, and a possible showdown with two-time welterweight world champion, superstar boxer, Showtime Shawn Porter. Timothy Bradley, he says the holdup between the two fighters agreeing to a fight is that, for one, why is this fight being considered or is targeting pay-per-view? He says nobody knows who Terence Crawford is. And if they don't know who Terence Crawford is, they for sure don't know who Shawn Porter is. He says you could go to 20 people who don't know, who are not huge fans in the sport of boxing, just casual people. He says, I've done the test. I went up to 20 different people. And I asked 20 different people. I said to them, hey, do you know who Terence Crawford is? And they said, absolutely not. They have no clue who Terence Crawford is. He says, then I go up to 20 more different people, and I asked them people, hey, have you ever heard of Shawn Porter? Do you know who Shawn Porter is? And those 20 people say, no, I have no clue who Shawn Porter is. He says, so why are they considering this fight being on pay-per-view? Today's time, we're just trying to throw anything on pay-per-view. Now, in the ring, it's a competitive fight, right? For hardcore boxing fans, for sure, it's a competitive fight. But he says, realistically, let's be realistic. Nobody knows who neither one of these guys are, so why are we trying to milk the fans for pay-per-view? So he says, we should just be simply focusing on putting on competitive fights. This fight is not a pay-per-view fight. It's not a pay-per-view worthy fight. It'll be action-packed because neither guy has back down in him. But at the end of the day, it's not a pay-per-view fight because nobody knows who either one of these guys are. So nobody's going to pay to see this fight. So he says, nowadays, everybody's just looking to milk the fans as much as possible, opposed to putting on just simply the best fights that are available. This is a competitive fight, but don't try to milk the fans to put this fight on pay-per-view because it's not a pay-per-view fight. Nobody knows who neither guy is. And, well, the proof is in the pudding, right? Terence Crawford has headlined 2 pay-per-views in his career, one being against Victor Postol, the other being against Amir Khan, and combined, it did a combined total of 210,000 pay-per-views, okay? And then Shawn Porter has done 1 headline pay-per-view. That was in his unification bout with undefeated two-time welterweight unified world champion. Well, he's not two-time, he's just two-time world champion, okay? He's the welterweight unified world champion, superstar boxer, Earl of Truth Spence Jr., okay? That was Shawn Porter's one and only headline pay-per-view. So it's pretty safe to say neither one of these guys are pay-per-view headliners, okay? Plain and simple. So Timothy Bradley is 1,000% correct. Neither one of these guys are a major draw. Shawn Porter, that one and only time where Errol Spence was his only time doing a pay-per-view headline card. Okay, he had other big fights. He fought former unified welterweight world champion, superstar boxer Keith One-Time Thurman. That was not a pay-per-view fight. He also fought Special K Kell Brook when he defended his IBF title. That wasn't a pay-per-view fight. So it's safe to say that he has a point, Timothy Bradley, that neither guy is a pay-per-view star. Terence Crawford, 37 fights, 37 wins, no losses, no draws, 27 big wins by way of knockout. He's 33 years of age, stands at 5'8" with a 74-inch arm reach. He has not had that legacy-defining, high-profile, lucrative fight in his career. Shawn Porter, 31 wins, 3 losses, 1 draw. Shawn Porter, once again, not a big draw. 33 years of age, but Shawn Porter, 5'7" with a 69-inch arm reach. The difference between Shawn Porter and Terence Crawford is Shawn Porter has had those high-profile, legacy-defining fights. Now, he's not always won, but he beat Adrian Broner. He beat Danny Garcia. He beat Yordenis Ugas. He beat Devin Alexander. He beat Andre Berto. He beat Paulie Malignaggi. Those are high-profile future Hall of Fame fighters, okay? Terence Crawford has yet to have that. Now, he's had one high-profile fight, that being his undisputed showdown with Julius Indongo when he got a stoppage victory to become undisputed at junior welterweight. But as far as it goes at welterweight and having that legacy, nobody knows who Julius Indongo was. Prior to that, he made some noise prior to that with some upset victories. After that, he's done nothing in the sport of boxing. Nobody knows who he is. Okay, so he hasn't had that legacy Hall of Fame fight, defining fight. So I agree with Timothy Bradley. Now, Timothy Bradley's delivery can be off at times. It's the way he delivers it. It's how he says it, okay? So Timothy Bradley, he says, nobody knows who neither guy is. And I agree with him, okay? When you're looking to put this fight on pay-per-view, right, in order to pay these purses, it's simply for the promoters and the networks to get a return on their investment, because they simply don't believe that these guys are massive draws, okay? And so when you put it on pay-per-view, you're asking the fans to reimburse you of these purses, okay? When you put it on regular TV, the fans are only paying their network, cable network, subscription amount of money per month, okay? They're not paying extra. So you're paying in hope of the viewership. It's completely different. So I agree with Timothy Bradley. Too many fights are being placed on pay-per-view unnecessarily, and it's not a success, okay? I believe it waters down the sport, and I also believe that it waters down the fighter's brand, because after the fight doesn't do well, you start to be viewed as not a big star in the sport of boxing, when everybody's not a pay-per-view star, okay? Floyd Mayweather, he is an anomaly. Oscar De La Hoya, Mike Tyson, Manny Pacquiao, Canelo Alvarez. You have Errol Spence Jr. Some guys are anomalies in the sport of boxing, but it's a handful. You had 1 billion people watch George Foreman, Muhammad Ali, okay? Muhammad Ali, Sugar Ray Robinson. Those guys are anomalies, okay? But, there's a handful. There's a handful. You can count on one hand how many pay-per-view stars in the history of the sport of boxing. It's not many, okay? So with that said, they're trying to make everybody a household pay-per-view star just to be reimbursed for the guaranteed purses. Plain and simple, okay? Again, like I said, you got Oscar De La Hoya. You have Mike Tyson, Floyd Mayweather. You had, Muhammad Ali. You had just certain guys. There's a limited amount of guys that are pay-per-view worthy superstars. Canelo Alvarez, Errol Spence, they're doing numbers, okay? Manny Pacquiao. But it's a handful, right? You hard-pressed to find more than 10 guys that are actual surefire pay-per-view stars, okay? And again, trying to put on Shawn Porter, who's never headlined his own pay-per-view outside of his one fight with Errol Spence, and most people will argue that the reason that fight was on pay-per-view was because of Errol Spence, okay, who had previously done a pay-per-view with 4-division world champion Mexican superstar boxer Mikey Garcia, okay? And Shawn Porter, Errol Spence was already building himself up as a pay-per-view star, okay, in the sport of boxing. And so Shawn Porter unification bout was on pay-per-view. Terence Crawford, not a pay-per-view star. The proof is in the pudding, okay? And so with that said, Timothy Bradley is 1,000% correct. And I like the fact that Timothy Bradley, he's cut and dry, right? Now, I don't always agree with Timothy Bradley and his delivery, but he's cut and dry, and he tells you how he feels, whether he's right or wrong, and he's 1,000% correct. And now this fight initially was being talked about for quite some time, and the WBO, World Boxing Organization, had to push them into this fight, okay? Because they had opportunity to just sit down and negotiate a fight. But Bob Arum, legendary promoter, top-ranked CEO and promoter Terence Crawford, he stated that Shawn Porter is not a fighter that's worth paying more than a guaranteed purse of $1 million. That's not going to get it done. Now, I don't believe it's a pay-per-view worthy fight. I'm still going to buy it. I don't think that it's going to do big numbers, but I do believe that the fighters are both high-profile fighters within the sport of boxing, and I think that they should be paid handsomely for their services, okay? Because this definitely has all the making of Fight of the Year on it, okay? So I do believe that they definitely should be paid handsomely for their services. But with that said, on the flip side of it, I don't believe it's a pay-per-view worthy fight. I don't think it's going to do big numbers, okay? Because like Timothy Bradley said, they're relatively unknown. But the fight itself, the action in the ring, the quality of the fight is going to deliver. And I believe it's going to be fight of the year candidate type of fight. So, you know, I just believe that Bob Arum, he's not willing to pay big money for any fighters, okay? And so could have been sat down and negotiated quite some time. Shawn Porter said when the fight started to really manifest in his brain, when the fans was calling for it, you know, it became his number one objective because he feels like he could prove a point and make a statement against Terence Crawford. And Terence Crawford should be looking to make a statement against Shawn Porter. But it was dragged out because Terence Crawford was looking to secure a fight with Manny Pacquiao and was unable to do so. So it was just dragged out until we got to this point where the WBO just said they had enough and ordered the two come to a decision within 30 days. That 30 days was up on September 2nd. They asked for an extension. It was supposed to go to a purse bid. They asked for an extension. They got an extension to September 14th. So now we have to see how everything unfolds and plays out. But that's all I got for y'all. Y'all already know what it is. It's your boy Blue, Blue Blood Sports TV. Hate, like, comment, and subscribe. If you haven't subscribed, hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, hit the bell icon to get all the new notification. Follow me on Instagram at Blue Blood Sports TV, all one word. Y'all already know what it is. Shout out to the entire LDBC. Shout out to New Media. Shout out to Black Media Row. Make sure you like and share the videos. That's all I got for y'all. Peace.
This is Amanda, the real deal Serrano, and you're watching Blue Blood Sports TV.